What if nothing around you changed? Same morning traffic, same overflowing inbox, same unpredictable people, but everything within you felt completely different. You wake up and realize your world is still full of noise, demands, and expectations, but you're no longer pulled by them. The tension that once clenched your jaw now passes like distant thunder. The distractions that used to steal your energy feel strangely powerless, and for the first time in a long while, your breath lands not in panic, but in presence. That kind of inner shift doesn't come from luck. It's not something you stumble into, and it's certainly not something the world gives you freely. It's earned through intention, awareness, and the daily practice of mental mastery. That's the Stoic path. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they didn't live in quiet temples away from the world. They lived inside it. Marcus ruled an empire. Epictetus was born into slavery. Seneca navigated the deadly politics of ancient Rome. They faced pressure, betrayal, loss, and chaos. But what set them apart wasn't their circumstances. It was their clarity, their calm, their ability to stand still in the middle of the storm. Because Stoicism isn't about becoming cold or emotionless. It's about developing the rare strength to pause, reflect, and respond, not react. It's about learning to protect the only thing you ever truly own, your inner world. And that starts with one shift in mindset, then another, and another. In this video, we're going to walk through 12 Stoic mindset shifts that can quietly but radically change how you move through life. These aren't just ideas to think about. They're tools to live by. Each one is a small, deliberate change in perception that helps you reclaim control of your focus, protect your energy, and stand strong, even when the world feels loud and uncertain. And maybe you're watching this because something in you already knows. You don't need more noise, more stimulation, more goals. You need less chaos, more clarity, less reactivity, more purpose, less chasing, and more grounded presence. So let me ask you, what would it look like to live each day unshaken by drama? To wake up already centered instead of already behind? To speak less but mean more? To stop trying to control everything and finally start mastering what's actually yours? That's what these Stoic shifts are here for. Whether you're new to this path or already walking it, what matters isn't how much you've read. It's how deeply you're ready to live differently. Because real change doesn't happen all at once. It begins in the quiet moment when you decide, I will no longer give my peace away so easily. So if you're tired of being pulled in every direction, if you're ready to build a calm mind in a chaotic world, stay with me, because everything changes when you do. And now, let's begin with the first shift, the one that reframes your entire relationship with the world around you. Your inner world shapes your outer response. Have you ever noticed how two people can face the exact same situation, yet walk away feeling completely different? One gets angry. The other remains calm. One reacts like it's personal. The other pauses, breathes, and chooses not to give it power. The difference, it's not the situation, it's the inner world each person brings to it. This is where Stoic wisdom begins. The real battlefield is never out there, it's within. The fight is not with the world, but with how we perceive the world. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That quote alone can change your life, if you truly sit with it. What if the frustration you feel isn't coming from that rude coworker, but from the story you're telling yourself about what their tone means? What if the anxiety you carry isn't because life is chaotic, but because you're holding on to a belief that you must control everything? We rarely realize how much we hand over our peace to things that don't deserve it. And this is the first Stoic shift. You begin to reclaim your life the moment you reclaim your response. That doesn't mean pretending to be unaffected. This isn't about emotional suppression or faking calm. It's about building the awareness to pause, even for a breath, and ask, what's really happening here? Is this worth my energy? Is this about them or about me? That pause, that sacred space between stimulus and response is where your power lives. In a world that wants your immediate reaction, your pause becomes a quiet revolution. The truth is, most of us don't even realize we're reacting on autopilot. A glance becomes a judgment. A delay becomes a personal insult. A bad day becomes a spiral. But when we stop and step back, we realize not everything needs a response. Not every emotion needs to be acted on. Not every opinion needs our agreement or our outrage. It's like emotional jujitsu. Instead of absorbing the hit, you redirect the energy. Instead of letting someone's chaos invade your peace, you choose to remain still. And people start to notice. Because when your inner world is steady, your outer presence shifts. You stop matching the energy of the room and start grounding it. You become the calm in the storm, the one who doesn't escalate, the one who doesn't take the bait. And let's be clear, this isn't weakness. This is mastery. It takes far more strength to pause than to lash out. It takes real clarity to listen without absorbing, to observe without reacting. So the next time you feel the tension rising, the urge to snap, to prove, to defend, try this. Breathe. Ask yourself, what am I really responding to? Then choose, not from fear, but from clarity. Because that's how inner strength is built. Not by controlling the world, but by mastering your response to it. And over time, something beautiful happens. You stop being thrown by every little thing. You stop waking up already under siege. You become anchored, not immune to emotion, but guided by wisdom. And that is the foundation of a calm, focused, and unshakable mind. Now let's move into the next shift, one that will forever change how you view your emotions, not as enemies, but as powerful messengers. Emotion is a messenger, not a master. We're taught from a young age that emotions are either something to obey or something to suppress. You feel anger, so you lash out. You feel fear, so you retreat. You feel sad, so you shut down. Or you do the opposite. You hide it, push it down, pretend you're fine, smile when you're not. But what if there's another way? A wiser, steadier way? The Stoics believe something radical, especially by today's standards. Emotions are not your enemy, and they're not your ruler either. They're messengers, nothing more. Think about that. You don't have to obey every feeling that rises inside you, and you don't have to fear them either. Emotions are like inner alerts, signals from the mind and body that say, hey, pay attention here. Anger, for example, might reveal that your boundaries have been crossed. Sadness might be reminding you of something or someone you deeply value. Jealousy might be pointing toward a dream you've abandoned or a wound you haven't yet healed. The key is feel the emotion, but don't become it. Seneca once said, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Simple but powerful. Pause. When an emotion rises, don't let it hijack you. Instead, get curious. Ask, what are you here to show me? Is this feeling pointing to a truth or to a story I'm telling myself? Do I need to act or just observe? This shift, this moment of observation, is everything. It's the doorway between reactivity and wisdom. Because while you can't always control what you feel, you can always choose what you do next. That's what separates emotional chaos from emotional clarity. And no, this doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. It means becoming so aware of your emotions that you no longer get swept away by them. You can feel deeply without falling apart. You can cry without collapsing. You can be angry without losing yourself in it. It's not about denying your emotions. It's about dialoguing with them. Imagine receiving a message that says, "You've been hurt." Would you rage at the sender? Or would you read it, understand it, and choose how to respond? That's what emotional maturity looks like. You acknowledge the inner weather, but you don't let it dictate your direction. In a world that praises raw emotion and instant reaction, restraint is a quiet superpower. Have you ever said something in anger and regretted it moments later? Or made a fear-based decision that cost you years of growth? That's what happens when you follow emotion without reflection. You surrender your agency. But when you pause, even for just one deep breath, you change the entire trajectory of what comes next. And over time, something remarkable happens. People begin to trust you, not because you're perfect, but because you're grounded. You become the one who doesn't explode under pressure, the one who listens before reacting, the one who stays kind, even when it's hard. That kind of presence is magnetic because it's rare. So the next time emotion rises, whether it's sadness, jealousy, frustration, or fear, don't suppress it and don't obey it blindly. Just breathe, witness it. Ask, "What are you here to teach me?" Then choose your response, not from pain, not from panic, but from clarity. That's emotional strength. That's stoic mastery. And that's how you reclaim your peace. Coming up next, we'll talk about one of the most misunderstood forces in life, discomfort, and how, when approached wisely, it can become the birthplace of transformation. Discomfort is where transformation begins. We've been taught to avoid discomfort at all costs. We scroll when we're lonely. We eat when we're anxious. We stay busy so we don't have to feel. Somewhere along the way, we started treating every ounce of emotional or physical discomfort like a sign that something is wrong, like it's dangerous, like we need to run. But here's the truth. Discomfort doesn't mean something is going wrong. It often means something is trying to grow. In fact, most of the breakthroughs you're craving, the growth, the confidence, the healing, the peace, they all live on the other side of discomfort. And this is the third Stoic shift. To stop treating discomfort like an enemy and start treating it like a teacher. The Stoics didn't chase pain, but they also didn't flinch from it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Is your cucumber bitter? Then throw it away. Are there brambles in your path? Then go around them. That is enough. Don't add to your troubles by imagining them." In other words, don't amplify pain. Don't dramatize it. Don't fear it. Face it and move through it. Now let's get real. Discomfort doesn't feel noble in the moment. It feels like waking up early when your body begs for sleep. It feels like having the hard conversation you've been avoiding. It feels like sitting in the silence after loss instead of distracting yourself with noise. But here's the thing. No strength is ever built in comfort. The weightlifter grows stronger by lifting what's heavy. The artist creates something meaningful by wrestling with doubt. The person who becomes calm and grounded doesn't get there by running away from pain, but by sitting with it, breathing through it, and asking, what is this moment trying to shape in me? What part of me is being invited to grow? Because discomfort, when you stay present with it, becomes a passageway, a doorway, a forge. Most people never reach their potential, not because they aren't talented, but because they keep backing away from the fire that was meant to refine them. And let's be honest, in today's world, we are conditioned to seek ease, instant answers, instant food, instant comfort. We've been sold the lie that anything hard must mean something's broken. But sometimes hard just means you're being stretched into someone stronger. You don't build resilience by avoiding stress. You build it by moving through it, awake, alert, alive. Think about your own life. The moments that change you most, they probably weren't easy. They were the nights you questioned everything, the days you didn't think you'd make it, the seasons that brought you to your knees and then quietly helped you rise. And if you're in one of those seasons right now, if life feels heavy, uncertain, painful, I want to offer you this. Maybe you're not failing. Maybe you're being shaped. Maybe the discomfort isn't there to punish you. It's there to awaken you, to teach you what comfort never could, to strip away what no longer serves, to build the kind of strength that doesn't come from books, but from lived experience. So the next time you feel discomfort rise, don't run, don't numb it, don't silence it. Stay, breathe, ask what it's trying to show you. Because that moment, that hard, gritty, real moment, could be the one that changes everything. And now let's move into the next shift. The misunderstood virtue that silently rebuilds your life from the inside out. Discipline. Discipline is the art of self-respect discipline. It's a word that often brings up feelings of pressure, rigidity, or even punishment. For many of us, it sounds like being hard on ourselves, like saying no to pleasure, yes to suffering. But the Stoics saw it differently. To them, discipline wasn't about restriction, it was about reverence, not about controlling yourself to meet someone else's expectations, but about honoring your future self. This is the fourth mindset shift. Discipline is not punishment, it's a quiet act of self-respect. You see, every time you choose what's hard, but right over what's easy and distracting, you're telling yourself, I am someone worth showing up for. My word matters, even when no one else is watching. Seneca once wrote, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. In other words, chosen adversity, like the kind that comes from staying committed to what matters, is where your character is forged. Let's be honest, most of our suffering doesn't come from doing the hard thing. It comes from avoiding it, from saying you'll wake up early and hitting snooze, from telling yourself you'll start the project, but putting it off one more day, from knowing what needs to change, but pushing it to next week, next month, next year. Each time you break a promise to yourself, even silently, your self-trust erodes. And when self-trust is weak, confidence crumbles. Focus scatters. Peace slips away. But when you choose discipline, not for appearance, not for external praise, but because you respect who you're becoming, something profound starts to shift. Discipline becomes a rhythm, a return, not to perfection, but to alignment. Maybe today you choose to sit in stillness instead of scrolling. Maybe you eat what nourishes you instead of numbing. Maybe you say no to what drains you, even if it disappoints someone. These aren't grand heroic acts. They're small, sacred choices, and over time, they compound into the kind of life that feels grounded, intentional, and real. The truth is, discipline isn't loud. It's not flashy. You won't get a round of applause for doing what you said you'd do when no one was looking. But deep down, you will feel it. And that feeling, that quiet alignment between who you say you are and how you show up, is where real confidence is born. So if you've struggled with discipline in the past, Don't shame yourself. Don't call yourself lazy. Instead, ask, what would it look like to treat my future self like someone I deeply care about? What small decision today would earn my own trust back? That's the path forward, not through self-punishment, but through self-respect. Because the more consistently you choose discipline, not as control, but as care, the more your life becomes a reflection of your values. And over time, others will notice, not because you're louder, but because you're steady, rooted, aligned. You don't have to be perfect to be disciplined. You just have to return to yourself again and again. Now let's move into the next mindset shift, one that reveals the hidden power of your daily habits and how they quietly shape your identity. Your identity is shaped by what you repeat. Most people think identity is something you discover, like a hidden treasure buried somewhere inside you, just waiting to be found. But what if that's not true? What if your identity isn't something you uncover, but something you create? One quiet decision at a time. That's what the Stoics understood. They didn't wait for clarity to arrive. They practiced their way into becoming who they wanted to be. Your identity is not written in stone. It's etched by repetition. Marcus Aurelius said it best. You become what you give your attention to. Not just once, not just on your best days, but day after day in the small, often invisible choices you make when no one is watching. You want to be a writer? Then write, every day, even when it's messy. You want to be a calmer person? Then practice stillness, not when it's easy, but especially when it's not. You want to build confidence? Then keep the small promises you make to yourself, even if no one else ever hears about them. Because every repeated action is a vote, a whisper to your subconscious that says, this is who I am becoming. And those whispers, over time, become the architecture of your identity. But the opposite is also true. Every time you say yes to distraction over your deeper work, every time you break a commitment to yourself, even in silence, every time you wait for motivation instead of moving with discipline, you're shaping an identity too. An identity built not on alignment, but on avoidance. And this isn't about guilt or shame, it's about awareness. Because once you realize your habits are shaping who you are, not your goals, not your intentions, but your daily repetitions, you reclaim your power. It's empowering to know you don't have to wait for the perfect moment, the right mood, or someone's permission to start becoming who you want to be. You just start right where you are, with what you have. One action, then another, and another. Let me ask you this. What are you repeating today that your future self will thank you for? And just as important, what are you repeating that your future self will wish you had paused to question? It's okay to go slow. It's okay to fall and start again. What matters is that you keep returning to your values, to your vision, to the version of you that you're building quietly, brick by brick. Think of it like drops of water falling on stone. One drop does nothing. But day after day, that water carves canyons. Your habits do the same. The Stoic doesn't chase dramatic change. He cultivates consistency because he knows transformation doesn't feel loud. It feels repetitive. That's why it's so easy to miss and why most people give up too soon. They confuse boredom with failure. But in truth, boredom is the threshold of mastery. So the next time you wonder if you're becoming someone stronger, calmer, more aligned, don't look at your mood. Look at your rhythm. Ask, what am I repeating when life gets quiet? Because over time, repetition becomes identity, and identity becomes destiny. Let's move now to the next shift, the one that frees you from endless frustration and gives your energy back to what actually matters. Letting go of the illusion of control. Let go of the illusion of control. We spend so much of our lives trying to grip things that were never ours to hold. We plan everything to the last detail, hoping nothing goes wrong. We overthink our words, hoping everyone understands us. We replay conversations, outcomes, and what-ifs, as if the right amount of worry could change the past or guarantee the future. But here's the truth. Most of life is outside your control. The weather, the economy, other people's opinions, their moods, their decisions. Even your own body, at times, moves in ways you didn't plan. And yet we exhaust ourselves trying to control what was never ours to begin with. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus made it simple. He said, "Some things are up to us, and some are not." That single sentence holds the key to your peace, because once you start separating what's truly yours from what isn't, your effort from the outcome, your words from how they're received, you begin to reclaim something you didn't even realize you were losing. Your energy. Think about it. How often have you spiraled in anxiety waiting for someone to text back? How many sleepless nights have you spent trying to predict the outcome of something that hasn't even happened yet? Worry feels active. It gives you the illusion that you're doing something useful. But in truth, worry is wasted energy. It doesn't prevent anything. It just drains the strength you could be using to stay present, calm, and clear. The Stoic shift here is simple but life-changing. Let go of control, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. You don't stop caring. You don't give up. You simply redirect your attention from what you can't shape to what you can. You can't control how someone reacts, but you can control how you speak. You can't control the final result, but you can control your preparation, your integrity, your attitude. This shift is subtle, but powerful. Instead of clenching your fists around life, you begin to open your hands. Instead of trying to force everything to go your way, you start aligning your actions with your values and then trusting the process. That's where peace begins. And maybe you've learned this lesson the hard way. Maybe you tried to control everything, only to watch it fall apart anyway. Maybe you burned yourself out trying to be perfect, only to realize that even your best wasn't enough to stop life from being unpredictable. If so, that doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. And now you're being invited to live differently. You're being invited to place your energy where it actually matters, in your responses, your choices, your presence. Because when you stop trying to micromanage the universe, you start to discover your real power, the ability to stay centered no matter what storm comes. Letting go doesn't mean becoming passive. It means becoming selectively powerful. You stop wasting energy on outcomes and start investing it into intention. So here's a question to sit with. Am I focusing on what's mine or what isn't? Am I gripping the uncontrollable or growing what I can influence? The more you ask that, the more grounded you become. Because clarity doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from realizing you don't have to. And that's not apathy. That's wisdom. That's strength. Coming up next, we'll look at a powerful truth few people talk about. How what you tolerate silently ends up defining your life. What you tolerate, you invite. Have you ever kept quiet just to keep the peace, even when something inside you knew that peace had already been broken? Maybe you laughed off a disrespectful comment. Maybe you let someone cross your boundaries because it felt easier than confronting them. Maybe you told yourself it's not a big deal, even though it chipped away at your energy a little more each time. Here's the hard truth. What you tolerate, you invite, not just from others, but from yourself. Every time you stay silent when something violates your peace, you're not just enduring, you're sending a message to the world, to your subconscious, to your future. The message is either, this is okay, or this stops here. And this is where Stoicism offers us a powerful shift. Seneca once said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." In other words, we fear setting boundaries because we think we have unlimited time to fix what we keep allowing. But we don't. You don't get unlimited chances to reclaim your dignity. You don't get endless peace to spare. And the longer you tolerate what drains you, the more it becomes your new normal. Let me be clear. This isn't about becoming harsh, cold, or confrontational. The Stoic path is about self-respect. Quiet, steady, unshakable. You don't have to shout to set a boundary. You don't need to explain your worth to be worthy. You don't need to wait for things to get unbearable to say, this no longer aligns with me. Most of the boundaries we need to set don't even involve other people. They involve ourselves. We tolerate our own excuses. I'll start tomorrow. I'm too tired today. It's not that bad. And slowly, almost invisibly, those small tolerances shape our identity. The Stoic knows that tolerating what weakens you is not humility, it's self-abandonment. And the longer you allow it, the deeper it roots itself into your daily rhythm. So here's the shift. Start seeing every tolerance as a teacher. Ask yourself, what am I allowing right now that drains my energy? What standard have I lowered just to feel safe or accepted? What have I been silently enduring that no longer reflects the person I'm becoming? And then act, not with anger, but with clarity, because when you raise your standards, not just publicly, but privately, people feel it. Some will rise to meet you, some will fall away. Both are forms of progress. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone. You don't have to justify your peace. Sometimes the most powerful transformation is the quiet decision to stop accepting what hurts you. So the next time life presents a choice between discomfort and self-abandonment, choose the discomfort. Choose to speak the truth, even if your voice trembles. Choose to say no, even when you've been trained to say yes. Choose to protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. What you tolerate, you invite. But what you respect, you reinforce. And the more you act from that place of dignity, the more your life begins to reflect it. Next up, we'll explore something equally powerful. The practice of speaking less, but meaning more. And why restraint is one of the most magnetic traits in a world that never stops talking. Speak less, mean more. We live in a world that never stops talking. Opinions, updates, commentary, it's constant. We speak to be heard. We post to be seen. And somewhere in the noise, we forget something ancient and powerful. Words carry weight only when they aren't wasted. This is the 8th Stoic Mindset Shift. Speak less, mean more. In a culture that equates volume with influence, the Stoic offers a quiet rebellion, restraint. Not silence from fear, but speech that's rooted in presence and purpose. Marcus Aurelius warned, the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. And in conversation, this applies deeply, because when you feel the need to over-explain yourself, to fill every pause, to be understood by everyone, you're not speaking from strength. You're speaking from insecurity. And the more you do, the more power you give away. Let's be honest. How many times have you said something quickly, emotionally, and regretted it moments later? A defensive comment, an unnecessary explanation, a small outburst that created a bigger mess than the silence ever would have? It's not weakness to pause. It's not avoidance to speak carefully. It's wisdom. The Stoics practiced what we might call verbal discipline. They saw language not as a way to dominate, but to build clarity, connection, and self-command. And that starts with this question. Does this need to be said? Does it add peace or tension? Will I still mean it tomorrow? This doesn't mean we stop expressing ourselves. It means we stop leaking energy through careless expression. Because when you speak less, but with honesty, intention, and calm presence, people feel the difference. They lean in, they listen, they trust that when you say something, it matters. You become the kind of person who doesn't react to every provocation, who doesn't feel the urge to fill silence with noise, who doesn't need to prove your intelligence by talking, but proves your wisdom by listening. That kind of restraint builds presence. And presence, more than noise, is what people remember. So here's the practice. When the urge to jump in arises, pause. When someone says something that stings, pause. When you're uncertain, pause. Let stillness do the work your words don't need to. Because stillness doesn't mean absence. It creates space. Space for clarity, for truth, for emotional precision. In time, you'll notice something powerful. You won't just be speaking differently, you'll be thinking differently. Your mind becomes less reactive, more reflective. You learn to wait, not to withhold, but to understand. And when you do speak, it's not to win. It's to express with integrity, to connect with intention, to share, not to impress, but to uplift. In a noisy world, your quiet becomes strength, your restraint becomes depth, and your words become rare, real, and respected. So the next time you feel the need to say more, ask, am I adding meaning or just filling space? Speak less, mean more. Let your presence say the rest. And now let's move into the next mindset shift, one that tackles one of the most silent poisons of the modern mind, comparison, and how breaking free from it unlocks your true self. Comparison poisons the mind. You were probably doing just fine until you opened your phone. Someone bought a new house. Someone hit a career milestone. Someone smiling on a beach while you're folding laundry or sitting in traffic. And just like that, without warning, your peace starts to shrink. Comparison rarely announces itself. It slips in quietly, disguised as a glance, a scroll, a moment of curiosity. But its impact is sharp. It doesn't just make you feel behind, it makes you feel less. This is the 9th Stoic Mindset Shift. Comparison poisons the mind. Because when you compare your real, messy, complex life with someone else's carefully curated highlight reel, you're not being honest. You're being unfair. You see their moment of success, but not the years of struggle that preceded it. You see their confidence, but not the nights they doubted everything. You see the result, but not the cost. And yet we fall into the trap, thinking someone else's pace is the right one, or that their validation means our own progress isn't enough. The Stoics taught a better way. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." In other words, your challenges aren't proof that you're failing. They're opportunities to reveal who you really are. Your struggle is not your weakness. It's your sharpening. But you can't see that if your eyes are always on someone else's lane. Comparison blinds you to your own journey. It makes you forget how far you've already come. It convinces you that your life is behind, when in reality, it's just unfolding on your time. Let's be honest. The need to compare usually stems from uncertainty. When we don't feel clear or confident about who we are, we start looking outward for clues. We ask, am I doing okay? But instead of turning inward, we look to everyone else, and the compass starts to spin. The Stoic path is different. It asks you to drop the scoreboard completely. You're not here to win someone else's game. You're here to walk your own. So let me ask you, who would you be if you weren't trying to catch up to anyone? What would your goals look like if they weren't shaped by external timelines? What would your day feel like if your only comparison was to the person you were last week? Because that's the only measure that matters. Are you more centered than you were yesterday? More aligned? More honest with yourself? That's growth. And here's something we often forget. Comparison doesn't just steal joy, it also breeds resentment. It creates tension where there should be admiration. It makes someone else's win feel like your loss. But life is not a zero-sum game. Someone else's light doesn't dim yours. Their timeline is not a threat to yours. Their success doesn't mean you're behind. It just means you're different. And that's okay. Your path is sacred. Your pain is shaping you in ways you can't yet see. And your timing is not late, it's precise. So the next time comparison creeps in, pause. Return to yourself, to your values, to your rhythm. Journal, reflect, breathe. Because when you're deeply rooted in your own journey, you don't need to compete. You cultivate, you grow, you walk forward, quietly, steadily, without apology. And that kind of focus, it's magnetic, it's peaceful, it's powerful. Now let's move into the next mindset shift, one that reminds us of the surprising strength hidden in slowing down. Stillness is strength. Stillness is strength. We live in a world that equates motion with meaning. If you're not busy, you're falling behind. If you're not moving fast, you're missing out. If you're not reacting, you must not care enough. But here's the truth. Constant motion doesn't mean you're progressing. It often just means you're distracted. And this is where the Stoics remind us of something deeper, something we've forgotten. Stillness is not laziness. Stillness is strength. In fact, in a chaotic, overstimulated world, the ability to remain mentally and emotionally still may be the rarest and most powerful skill you can develop. Imagine a storm spinning violently, trees snapping, leaves swirling, and at the very center there's a pocket of absolute calm. That's the eye of the storm. That's the Stoic mind. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they lived in uncertain, high-pressure times, and yet they returned again and again to this practice, inner stillness. Marcus led an empire, but found clarity in solitude. Epictetus was born a slave, yet mastered his freedom from within. Seneca wrote letters of deep reflection while surrounded by political chaos. Why? Because they knew when you can sit in stillness without needing to escape, explain, or react, you regain your power. Stillness is presence without panic. It's observing your thoughts without being ruled by them. It's resisting the urge to rush into judgment, to speak without thinking, to act without understanding. And that takes strength. Because let's be honest, sitting still with yourself, that's not easy. We're so used to filling silence with noise, filling boredom with scrolling, filling discomfort with distraction. But stillness asks something different. It asks you to listen to your body, your breath, your deeper knowing. It asks you to stop reaching outside for validation and start returning inward for clarity. That's not weakness, that's maturity. And when you start building stillness into your life, your mornings, your conversations, your decision-making, you start to feel the shift. You're no longer as easily triggered. You don't flinch when someone misunderstands you. You don't rush to fill awkward silence. You welcome it. You become the calm in the room, not because you try to be, but because you practice being unshaken. Let me ask you, When was the last time you allowed yourself to sit in total quiet without reaching for your phone or your to-do list? When was the last time you paused long enough to hear your own truth before reacting to someone else's noise? That's where stillness lives, in the pause, in the breath before the response, in the moment between stimulus and reaction. And here's the beauty of it. Stillness sharpens everything. Your thinking becomes clearer. Your emotions become less volatile. Your decisions become more aligned. You become grounded, not just in what you do, but in who you are. So no, stillness is not laziness. It's not passivity. It's preparation. It's precision. It's strength. And in a world that's always shouting, your quiet presence becomes unmistakably powerful. So make space for it. Wake up 10 minutes earlier just to sit. Take a walk without music. Let yourself be still, not because you're doing nothing, but because you're preparing to do the next thing with clarity. Stillness is not the absence of action. It's the source of wise action. And when you lead from stillness, you don't just move, you move with purpose. Now let's move into the next Stoic shift, one that liberates your heart as much as your mind. Forgiveness is liberation. Forgiveness is liberation. Let's talk about something that's often misunderstood, something that's deeply personal, and something that, when practiced from a place of clarity, becomes one of the most powerful acts of inner freedom: forgiveness. Now, when we hear that word, most of us recoil a little because we assume it means saying what happened was okay. We assume it means forgetting or excusing or letting someone back into a space they've already hurt. But that's not what true forgiveness is. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about you. It's about your clarity, your freedom, your peace. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." In other words, it's not the past event that continues to hurt us. It's the story we keep replaying. It's the mental and emotional loop we've tied ourselves to, sometimes for years. And that loop, it doesn't just stay in one corner of your life, it spreads. You carry the bitterness into your relationships. You bring the mistrust into your self-worth. You drag an old wound into new beginnings and wonder why they still hurt. But here's the truth. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's strength. It takes real strength to stop reopening the wound, to say, I may not get the apology I deserve. I may never fully understand why, but I will not let this define who I become. That's liberation. It doesn't mean you reconcile. It doesn't mean you forget. It means you stop bleeding over something that's already cut you once. Forgiveness doesn't deny the pain. It gives you permission to stop carrying it. And sometimes the person we most need to forgive is ourselves. For staying too long, for missing the signs, for reacting in ways we regret, for not knowing better at the time. But how long will you keep punishing yourself for being human? We all carry regrets. We all have moments we wish we could rewind. But holding on to shame doesn't make you stronger. It just makes healing harder. So here's the Stoic invitation. Ask yourself, am I willing to let go, not because they changed, but because I am ready to? Am I ready to stop carrying what was never meant to come with me into my future? You don't have to do it all at once. Forgiveness can be quiet, gentle, gradual. But every time you choose it, even a little, you reclaim space in your heart that was occupied by pain. And that space, it's where peace lives. It's where clarity returns. It's where growth finally has room to breathe. So if you're holding on to something, an old betrayal, a bitter memory, a silent grudge, ask yourself, Is it really protecting me, or is it just preventing me from healing? Because there comes a moment when you realize your soul is too precious to stay shackled to resentment, and your life is too short to stay imprisoned by something that's already over. Forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it does change who you are when you step into the future. And that, my friend, is liberation. Now let's move to our final Stoic mindset shift, one that reveals where real confidence comes from. Not from praise or performance, but from alignment. Confidence comes from congruence. Confidence comes from congruence confidence. It's often misunderstood. We think it's about being loud, bold, unshakable on the outside. We imagine the person who walks into the room, commands attention, and speaks with certainty. But what if I told you real confidence isn't what the world sees? It's what you whisper to yourself in the quiet moments when no one else is around. This is the final Stoic mindset shift. Confidence comes from congruence. Congruence means alignment between your values and your actions, between your words and your behavior, between who you say you are and how you live when no one's watching. And the truth is, most of us don't feel insecure because we're flawed. We feel insecure because deep down, we know there's a gap between what we believe in and how we're actually living. You say you value discipline, but you keep hitting snooze. You say you want peace, but you keep engaging with chaos. You talk about growth, but you keep choosing comfort. That's not failure, it's feedback. It's a reminder that confidence isn't something you fake. It's something you earn through consistent integrity. The Stoics didn't build confidence by shouting. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but wrote humbly to himself, constantly questioning his ego. Epictetus was born a slave, but carried himself with the quiet strength of someone who knew that his mind was his domain, and he governed it with clarity. Their power didn't come from status. It came from alignment. And that's a lesson we can all live by. You don't become confident because someone compliments you. You don't stay confident because you had one great day. You become confident by showing up repeatedly for the person you said you'd be. Let me ask you something. What if your self-worth wasn't based on how others saw you, but on how honestly you live your life? What if you didn't have to convince anyone you're enough because your choices already prove it to you? That's what congruence gives you. It gives you the quiet kind of confidence, the grounded kind, the kind that doesn't need validation because it's rooted in truth. And here's what's beautiful. You don't have to become a whole new person to earn this kind of confidence. You just have to start keeping small promises to yourself. Wake up when you said you would. Speak kindly to people when it's easier to be cold. Do the work even when no one's watching. Stop chasing what looks good and start aligning with what feels right. Over time, those small acts become your identity. And suddenly, you're not performing confidence. You're living it. You're not trying to prove anything. You're simply walking in your truth. Because when you're congruent, when your outer world reflects your inner world, you no longer feel like a stranger to yourself. And that feeling, that quiet, unshakable self-trust, that's the kind of confidence that lasts. So ask yourself, where in my life am I out of alignment? What do I keep saying I value, but I'm not embodying? What would it look like to return to myself, honestly, gently, powerfully? Because congruence doesn't mean perfection. It means practice. It means returning again and again to your values, even after you fall, even after you drift. The Stoic path isn't about pretending to have it all together. It's about walking toward integrity, one quiet step at a time. So the next time you wonder how to build confidence, don't start with what the world sees. Start with what you live, because the most magnetic person in any room isn't the loudest. It's the one who's at peace with who they are, because their actions, values, and words are all finally speaking the same language. And that is the power of congruence. The Stoic Shift. So here we are, 12 shifts later. And maybe you noticed, none of them required you to be louder. None of them demanded perfection. None of them asked you to control the world. Because real transformation, the kind that actually lasts, isn't loud. It's quiet, subtle, daily. It shows up in the moments you pause before reacting, in the choice to breathe before speaking, in the decision to protect your peace, even when chaos invites you in. You won't find stoicism in grand performances. You'll find it in how you carry yourself when no one's clapping. You'll find it in how you respond when life doesn't go as planned. You'll find it in the stillness between impulse and intention. This philosophy, it's not a rule book. It's not about pretending to be above emotions or walking around unbothered as a performance. Stoicism is a discipline, a practice, a returning again and again to what truly matters, your inner world. It asks, what do I actually control? Who do I want to be in this moment? What does strength look like when it's quiet? Because the truth is, you don't need to control the world to become unshakable. You only need to master your response to it, and that's where your power lives. It's in how you show up when you're disappointed but still choose integrity. It's in how you hold space for discomfort without needing to numb it. It's in how you speak less but say more, because your presence already speaks volumes. These mindset shifts, they're not magic formulas. They're invitations to live more intentionally, to stand more firmly in your values, to move through life not just reacting, but responding with clarity, calm, and purpose. That's what Stoicism really is. Not cold detachment, but clear awareness. Not emotional denial, but emotional discipline. Not passive surrender, but active self-governance. And the longer you walk this path, the more you begin to realize you don't need to chase peace. You create it. You don't wait for strength. You cultivate it. You don't seek approval. You stand in alignment. Because eventually your life becomes the proof. Not by what you post or say, but by how you live. By what you no longer tolerate. By what you protect. By the choices you make. Not once, but daily. So if one of these Stoic shifts spoke to something inside you, don't treat it as inspiration. Treat it as a standard. Let it become a mirror you return to, a compass to keep you centered when life spins. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. Just begin, one shift at a time, with presence, with patience, with the quiet, steady courage that says, I'm ready to live differently now. Because the person you're becoming, they're not built in a single moment of motivation. They're built in the small, unseen moments you keep choosing wisdom over noise. And that is the Stoic shift. So thank you for walking this journey with me. If this message resonated, share it with someone who could use a little stillness, a little strength, and a little less noise in their life. And most importantly, don't just listen, live it. Until next time, stay anchored, stay present, and stay free.